When I talked about multiples, here are just two different instances where multiples have a bigger at-risk factor. With some of your in vitro fertilization medications and things along those lines, you are seeing and hearing about larger family multiples. This first one is the McCoy septuplets. They live in Carlisle, Iowa. And I know that her septuplets, she had one child right here before she had her other seven. Okay. She did in vitro fertilization where they take the egg, fertilize it in a petri dish, and then insert it into the uterus. All seven of her eggs took. These septuplets are 24. They were just born the same year as my twins. But this is her at 30. I think she was at like 33 or 34 weeks. And when she sat in a chair, her belly stuck out 12 inches past her knees. So if you're sitting in your chair, just kind of look down and imagine a standard ruler from your knee out, and that's where her belly hit. It doesn't look very big sticking out here, but it was. They did induce her. They took her C-section because she was having such problem with the weight. It was putting so much pressure on her spine that it was causing paralysis. So here are hers, and then here is her family. That was a couple years ago. This is Kate from Kate Plus 8 on TLC. And she had 6 in here at one point. Her stomach is resting on a sink. But this is the ultrasound, and you can only see 5, but there is another baby down here that you can see better. Okay. So just lots and lots of complications with multiples. Tests done during your pregnancy. Very much basic ultrasound. Talked about those as far as 2D all the way up to 5D. Get a nice clear picture of baby. In the first ultrasounds, they're going to do things like measure the femur. They're going to measure the spine. And they're going to measure the diameter of the head. All of these things give them a more clear due date. If there was any question on the due date, it would just give them a nice clear, okay, yep, your due date is correct, or wait, I think you're further along, or maybe a little bit not quite as far along as we thought. Okay. They'll watch like heart move, they'll check the organs, they'll do all of those things. In an ultrasound, this would be fraternal twins, where they have their own amniotic sacs and their own placenta. And this would be identical twins, okay, where they share a amniotic sac and they can either share their own placenta or have a separate, okay? But this is just the difference between identical and fraternal. A quad test is a standard test done to, you don't have to list these pink things, okay? Really just need the black. This just tells you the 4 tests, because it's quad, it means 4, okay? This is a standard blood test done right around 16 to 18 weeks, and it's looking for these things. And a lot of them are spine related and or placental related, okay? So AFP is a spinal defect, often known as spina bifida. If there's any indication in an ultrasound that maybe the spine isn't looking great, it might pick it up here in the quad test. Okay. HCG, once again, looking to make sure that the levels in that HCG are where you need to be to have a healthy placenta. And then esterol is just, once again, healthy placenta. And then we're really just making sure that everything is getting through nutrient-wise in that placenta. These tests do not diagnose a problem. It just gives them a flag. Hey, something might not be right. We need extra tests. Okay. All pregnant women should be offered the quad test. You have a right to refuse any test in a pregnancy because prenatal visits are not required. But the quad test is really a least invasive test. It's a prick of your finger or a draw of blood in your arm. They take a vial or two of blood and then they send it off for these precursors. And it's really not super invasive. It's not diagnosive. So it would just say, everything's going great. Or, hey, maybe we suggest some more tests. Okay. Once again, these risk factors, you don't need to write these down because it's in pink or red or whatever you want to call this, really indicate when people should have this quad test. Same as the previous pages. Okay. This is spina bifida. One of the cool things about spina bifida now, not the concept of spina bifida being cool, but the possibilities is that if spina bifida is detected in an ultrasound or in the quad test, and then the preceding tests as well, then what they can do is they can go in while baby is still in the uterus. They will take out the uterus. They will open up, this is baby's back right here. And what spina bifida is when the skin and tissue around the spine do not close. So the spine is open, which leads to paralysis and even possibly death. And they can close this up, sew up the uterus, put the uterus back in mom, sew up mom, and pregnancy continues. Now, they would go to a C-section when time came, and maybe even things like bed rest. But 100%, and this is just a cool picture of the baby's hand coming out of the uterus during this spina bifida test. But a lot of the spina bifidas now decrease in severity and can really make a difference between having a paralyzed child or even early death of a child in these spina bifida pre-surgeries. Test done during pregnancy, and this is 100% optional, is this amniocentesis. So if the quad test comes back with abnormal cursors, meaning something is a flag in this quad test, they can do an amniocentesis where they take this needle right here, kind of right here, this is it, is about 6 to 10 inches long, depending on the brand they use. And what they do with an ultrasound is they penetrate mom's abdomen through to the amniotic sac, and amniotic fluid carries baby's DNA. So they're going to draw out a little bit of that amniotic fluid and they're going to test it. Dominant genes, recessive genes, do they carry genes for a spinal defect or other possible things? Okay. There is a 1 to 3% chance that when they puncture this amniotic sac, that it does not heal itself back up and it starts to leak amniotic fluid, and you would have a preterm delivery and possibly a miscarriage. 1 to 3% chance. Okay. This is 100% optional. You can decline any prenatal test. Okay. Some people truly just don't want to know. They don't want to know if there's a risk of their baby having a recessive or dominant gene. They're going to love their baby no matter what, and they don't want to stress about it. But this DNA, do note, will have all the recessive and dominant genes. So your baby could carry a genetic factor as a recessive gene and never have those attributes. They could just be carriers for the next generation. So when they come back and say your baby is going to have Down syndrome and diabetes and all these other things, when they're born, they might not have any of them. And for some people, that would stress them out during their pregnancy, and they don't want to know. Some people, the more information they know, the better. They're able to handle it. They can prepare for it, and that's how their brain works. Whatever works for you. Okay, I might not get all the way through this. Tests done during pregnancy. One of them is a glucose screening done between 24 to 28 weeks. And what you're going to do is you're going to fast. So about midnight the night before your test, you will not eat anything for that roughly like 8 to 12 hours, whenever your test is. You'll go into your doctor's or like the lab at your doctor's office, and you'll drink one of these fluids. It's about 4 to 6 ounces, and it tastes kind of like if you've ever gone to a fountain in like Come and Go or wherever and got a pop and the carbonation was out and you just got a lot of syrup. That's what they taste like, kind of like a orange pop with no carbonation. It just, yeah, it's not that much. You drink it and you sit and you wait for 1 hour. At the end of the hour, they will draw your blood, okay? And then you'll go on your way. They'll give you some crackers, some water, and you'll go on your way. Not a big deal. For a lot of people, it's that fasting for 8 to 12 hours before, and then they get lightheaded or whatever. But super, super simple. They'll definitely tell you the days leading up to your gestational test or your glucose test. Go light on the sugars, no like chocolate cake the day before, light on the fruits, because this is checking for your glucose level or your sugar levels in mom. And one of the things that it could lead to possibly is gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes is when your body does not produce adequate amounts of insulin to regulate the sugar during pregnancy. It is a pregnancy only diabetes. Okay. So just elevated glucose levels in mom brings extra glucose to baby, can cause things like large babies. So a lot of gestational diabetes babies are in the upwards of 10, 11, 12 pounds. Okay. Those who develop gestational diabetes, they say in your advanced age, in your 60s, 70s up, that you do have a higher risk of acquiring regular diabetes. But really, truly, how they monitor it is all diet. Okay. You're really, truly going to cut out anything that's not fruits, vegetables, lean proteins. You're really going to go low carb, no carb, gluten-free, really cut out the sugars, the snacks, in the hopes to try to maintain this glucose level during pregnancy. And it can be manageable. It's not always the most pleasant, but it absolutely can be manageable. Large birth weight, premature delivery because of the large birth weight. When you have the large birth weight, you have a higher rate of C-section and slight increase of fetal and neonatal death due to complications from this pancreas and the high glucose levels within baby. Okay. They have got it down to a science now. It really, truly can be managed and handled. But this glucose screening, if you fail the first one, they'll pull you in for a second glucose screening where you do this in a series of 3. You fast, you drink the 4 to 6 ounces, they take your blood, you wait an hour, take their blood, and then you drink another solution, wait another hour, draw your blood, drink the third solution, wait an hour, draw your blood, and that would be the final screening to say yes or no gestational diabetes. Okay. They do not do it based off this first screening. They will do a second screening. Okay. Very manageable, low risk of fatality. And it really truly is managed primarily through diet.